Well, first of all, we are announcing that late yesterday we filed suit in federal court against the current HISD evaluation, in which half of the evaluation for a good number of the teachers is a statistical measure that we consider very seriously flawed. We expect to hear the district say, well, this system weeds out ineffective teachers. So what we have here are 4 teachers who, by any standard the district has used other than this formula, are extremely effective, and you're going to hear their stories and how they have been damaged, and these are plaintiffs in the case. But we do want to explain what our problem is. We use a system called EVOS. It was developed by a man named Bill Sanders, and allegedly it can project whether a teacher has taught a child everything they need to know. Now you have to consider that wasn't what the formula was first developed for. It was first developed to measure the productivity in some bulls in the birth weight of the calves that they produced. Bill Sanders was an ag major. Bill Sanders also, when the district first started using this formula, it was just used for bonuses. I was at a meeting where we asked him, should your formula, will this ever be used for teacher evaluation? And he told us it would be totally inappropriate to use it for evaluation. I still agree with his early position. Now, what that says is, and first of all, anyone in here that can tell me what they think that says, because this is how a teacher is judged as effective or ineffective. What they allegedly can do is take the past test scores a student has, and based on that, plug it into this formula, and it will project what they should score. Now, there's a certain absurdity in that common sense should tell people, and that's it assumes that the only factor related to whether a child learns is the teacher. One of the things we're alleging is there are considerable statistical problems with it. And it's not just us alleging. If you look at the lawsuit, it cites the American Statistical Association as basically saying it's not ready for prime time, Rand Corporation, and we put a study in your press packets done by Dr. Beardsley at Arizona State, specifically done on HISD. Along with the fact that we feel you can't isolate a teacher as the only factor. You can't explain this to a teacher and have them understand. I mean, we hear the board frequently say, oh, we don't understand why they don't get it. That's why they don't get it. It is doctoral level math. And I did have one time who understood it. He had a PhD in math. And then he said, well, I need the computer algorithms because I can't figure my score without it. So we put in an open records request, and what we got back is, sorry, the contract with the company makes these proprietary, even the district doesn't have them. So basically what happens is the test scores are plugged into a black box where no teacher can either calculate or try and refute the number that comes out that tells if they're a good teacher. Now that's, of course, half of the evaluation where some of them are actually using the state accountability test, but we have grade levels that don't, where they rely on the Stanford achievement test. That test isn't aligned with our curriculum. So you're testing a child on something that he hasn't been taught because it's not part of the curriculum, and then you're determining whether the teacher was effective. Well, the only way that teacher is going to come up effective is if they teach the test rather than the state curriculum. I mean, there are multiple factors in here, but the primary factor is the teachers don't understand it. It's statistically not ready for prime time. And even if they do understand it, they can't get to the black box that it's sitting in because of the contract with the company that sold this to them. There are also specific groups of teachers where it doesn't work. Like we have a number of students who, in elementary, will take the test in Spanish the first couple of years, and then they shift to English. And what we see district-wide is when they shift to English, the whole class's scores tank. If you teach gifted and talented, like Andy does, there's not much room for them to come up. Those kids are blowing the lid off the test. So it's very hard for him to get a growth factor, and God forbid a kid should miss a question, because it could really damage his score. So that's a serious problem. Plus, you can manipulate a teacher's scores by which students you give them and whether or not there's a growth potential. And you know, we're not anti-evaluation, but we expect a fair evaluation, and we have had enough time to look at this. It wasn't a fair thing when they used it on bonuses, but that was annoying. This is demoralizing to the teaching force. We hear teachers constantly say, I'm leaving because of the HISD evaluation. I can't deal with this. We have seen unprecedented teacher turnover. We lost well over 2,000 teachers last year, and we're seeing it look like it's probably going to increase this year.
Well, first of all, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Daniel Santos, and I teach at Jackson Middle School. And unfortunately, due to this broken model system, I've been pigeonholed and I've been made a caricature, an ineffective teacher, simply because scores do not rise. But I'm here to share with you that I am a great teacher. I am a great teacher according to my current students, who frequently remind me how I am their favorite teacher, and by former students who visit me weekly from high school to tell me how I still inspire them. One of whom at Austin High School has chosen to become a teacher because of me when I had her in 6th grade. I am a great teacher according to my past evaluations that were documented by multiple independent observers across multiple years and across multiple grade levels. I am a great teacher to my fellow campus teachers who selected me as the Campus Teacher of the Year, and by future teachers, interns from the University of Houston who I've mentored in my classroom in 2011 and 2012. I am a great teacher also to the parents who 24 hours ago, last night, honored me yet again for going over and beyond. And yet, according to this broken evaluation system, I am deemed ineffective. It's dispiriting, it's demoralizing, it's insulting to be told that I'm ineffective when clearly the evidence shows that I am, and it doesn't mesh with my classroom performance or the time and the effort that I devote to my students. So this morning, I stand united with my fellow teachers, demanding an end to this broken evaluation system, which punishes teachers like myself who choose to help students with the greatest needs. And before I end, I would like to express how fortunate that we are to have the support of the Houston Federation of Teachers, Gayle Fallon, the American Federation of Teachers, our national president, Randy Weingarten, who continues to lead the way in denouncing value-added metrics as junk science, a sham. Thank you for all your time.
I've been doing this job for 37 years. I have never had a poor evaluation in any of the numerous evaluation systems that I've worked under and been evaluated by many different district assessors, and have always been deemed at the very least acceptable and at the very most highly effective. 2 years ago, I was one of several individuals in the district who received the highest Aspire bonus award in the district. Last year, I was near the bottom. I got the minimum of what was granted to my school. And that is my biggest complaint with EVAS. It is not reliable from year to year. I can guarantee you, I didn't forget how to teach last year. My methodology is the same. I do as every teacher does. I teach a lesson, and driving home, my head is filled with reflection and what could I do better that day and how can I get better the next day. This is what every teacher does. Yet, when I looked at my numbers last year, I was in the negative range on EVAS. My students did not reach their projections. I still had an effective teacher rating, which is fine. I've not been one of these teachers who've been so damaged that I'm on the track to termination, not yet. But the fact that we have such a roller coaster ride, especially with gifted students, shows the unreliability and how these scores are simply not a valid way of assessing teachers. Like Daniel, I hear from my former students all the time. At Carnegie, they go to some of the best schools, colleges in the country. They come back, and I hear from many of them every year, even the ones who weren't my best students, the ones who made a 1 on the AP test instead of a 5. And they write me and they say, you know, Mr. Dewey, I'm taking my U.S. history class in college, and the professor just gave me my reading list, and it's your reading list. And this is just going to be the easiest class I take. And I always write back and say thank you and tell them that they should do the reading this time. But they are absolutely prepared to go into college, and they're absolutely prepared for life. And this is what a high school teacher is supposed to do. You know, no one's ever told me I'm supposed to graduate from high school students who are capable of testing out of college. And if that's the new role, then maybe I'm not prepared for that. But my students are absolutely prepared to do anything they need to do. Yet, for some reason, their projection figures I give do not, they don't necessarily meet it. I want you to understand it. I don't completely understand how it's done, but sometimes our kids will come to us who made close to perfect on the test the year before. They'll miss one more question. That's negative growth. Now, you know, perfection may be a minimum standard if you're a tightrope walker, but perfection is a tough minimum standard in any other profession. If you're given a 55-question test and you get 55 correct one year, and then the next year in a different subject, you get 54 correct, is that enough to put a teacher's career on the line for? It simply does not make any sense, and this is the ceiling effect we get by teaching the highly gifted and highly talented students. I always like to make the analogy that if we have a 10-step staircase and you put a student on step 9 and another person on step 1 and give them 2 seconds to go up as many steps as they can, who's going to show the most growth? And that is what we're looking at Carnegie Vanguard High School. The tests do not measure that next level. They absolutely are incapable of doing it. So I'm decided to allow my name to be put on this lawsuit just so we can show that this doesn't only affect the struggling students or the marginal students, that every single teacher of every student in the school district is being evaluated under the same formula, under the same criteria. It's truly a one-size-fits-all, and it doesn't take the students into account. Thank you.
Yes, I'm Myla Van Dyne, and I work at Davis High School. I was inspired to go into teaching due to a former career as a corrections officer. I saw the firsthand results of limited opportunities dictated by poverty and joblessness. I decided that a career in education could be rewarding. I found the perfect school since it does have a high poverty rate, and it has been rewarding. That is until I was VAM'd. VAM stands for Value Added Measure, and it is sold as something called EVOS. This is the estimate made by a company in North Carolina called SAS, and is based on the productivity of agriculture that has now been applied to your children. I feel less effective than I did before, since my teachings have been reduced to cramming content and creating strategies focused on how to get students to pick the right bubble. The STAR test is very limiting. It does not engage a mind to even want to solve the question at hand, about things that they have never heard of, and about things they will never use for the most part. Teaching based on STAR is shutting out students from being interested in a subject that is way more than what can be expressed on a multiple choice test. Before STAR, we could focus on the standards the state of Texas set forth and use more interesting context. Under STAR, we don't have time to explore that and instead have to stay within what will probably be tested. That type of teaching is not engaging for the students. And that is why I have given Houston ISD my notification that I will not be returning. I am not participating in this lawsuit for myself. Thanks to my education, I have many other career avenues to explore. I am doing this because the EVOS system targets students and teachers who have, unfortunately, by the whims of Houston ISD and the state of Texas, wound up in a class that is evaluated by EVOS and in a high poverty school. And it is therefore causing teachers who have been committed to the school community to leave, as they don't need to work for Houston ISD either, or in that position. This is creating instability for the students who need stability the most. Instead of the focus staying on how to best care for the students, such as giving them decent food at lunch, the money is being siphoned by private companies who are benefiting by making up the story of bad students and bad teachers. Our students do have the ability to learn. They have the ability to pass the test at the desired level. The difference is that SAS and Houston ISD have made assumptions about kids that can turn on a dime, which disregards the fact that your children are much more than a calculation. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
And losing teachers like Mila is a great loss to the students. And what you've heard here from the teachers is what we hear every day on the phone. It takes a lot of guts for a teacher to put their name on litigation against their district. And I want to thank them because they've stood up for every teacher in the district.
All throughout this country, as we're sitting here today, you have teachers in classrooms working with kids, trying to help kids build relationships with each other and with adults, trying to help kids become critical thinkers and knowledge knowers, and trying to tap into their ingenuity and their creativeness, trying to help them when they stumble and fall, to rise up, to persist in the work that they need to do. Teachers like the teachers you just heard today, Daniel, Mila, Andy, the other teachers that stood up courageously to be part of this lawsuit. That's who educators are. That's why we do this work. And so to be evaluated by a formula that is incomprehensible unless you have an engineering degree, to be evaluated by a formula that is so proprietary that you don't even know the basis of the evaluation, and you get it so many months afterwards that there's no path for improvement. And to be evaluated by a formula as opposed to simply asking 3 questions. Have I gotten the tools and conditions I need to do my job? Have I taught it? And have kids learned it? And instead of having an evaluation that would actually be a meaningful measure of how we can help prepare kids for life and citizenship, for career and college, to turn teachers into an algorithm and children into a test score is wrong. And it's not as if this is the first time that anybody has said that to the Houston School District. Gayle, Fallon, and our federation has said it pretty much every single meeting they go to. But we are taking this lawsuit because we have no other choice, because the district has turned its back on what is really meaningful in terms of education. And the district has turned its back on people who have spent their lives helping kids. That's why we're all here today. No one disputes that there should be an evaluation system. Of course there should be an evaluation system. Of course we need to evaluate teachers. Of course there should be a system about how do we have constant improvement and support. And if somebody can't do their job, they shouldn't be there. But are we really going to lose Daniel? Are we really going to lose Andy? We've already lost Mila. Is that what evaluations are supposed to be about? Or are they supposed to be about how we align our education system to helping kids prepare for life and citizenship, career, and college? That's what this lawsuit is about. And that's why we are here as the national union, as our state union, and as our local in the support of public education for our kids, and in trying to make sure that teachers who only do everything in their power to help kids get treated in a way that is respectful and dignified. Thank you.
Amen.
We are proud to stand with these distinguished educators, our members, in calling out foul on the Houston School District for the EVOS system. And we are prepared to take this fight to school districts across the state who think that the best way to judge teachers is by a black box analysis of student test scores. Texas AFT is concerned about this Houston model spreading to other parts of the state. And we are acutely aware that the state of Texas right now is negotiating a waiver with the U.S. Department of Education around No Child Left Behind. And sadly, the U.S. Department of Education seems to favor this type of teacher evaluation based on value-added measures of student test scores. Fortunately for us, the state legislature in Texas has repeatedly refused to place value-added measures into the state's evaluation metric. And Houston right now is a rogue school district in that it is using a system that we feel is illegal, is not an accurate measure of a teacher's effectiveness, provides no meaningful feedback to a teacher regarding how to improve, and is driving teachers, qualified teachers, away from the Houston School District and thereby harming students. We want to be very clear that if the state of Texas and the Education Commissioner were to decide by fiat to make an agreement with the U.S. Department of Education to promulgate an evaluation system for the whole state of Texas based on this similar flawed value-added measure, that we would probably find ourselves in court with the state, and we will certainly be at the legislature in the coming session standing shoulder to shoulder with the parents of the state of Texas who have already made it abundantly clear to lawmakers that they feel that their students are already overly subjected to testing. And in the last session of the legislature, we saw the first of what we hope will be many steps to roll back the overemphasis on testing and to get the focus back on teaching.